Thanks. Good evening. I will call the City Council meeting of March 12, 2018 to order. The mayor is out this evening. I'm City Council President Brian von Lossberg from Ward 1, and I'll be the presiding officer. If you'll please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our first item is roll call, and let the record show that all council members are present with the exception of Julie Merritt. We have minutes to approve from February 26th and March 5th. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved. We have our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Hans.
All right, all of the committee meetings will be here Wednesday, March 14th. We're going to start with Parks and Conservation from 9:05 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., followed by Public Works at 9:35 a.m. to 9:55 a.m., then Committee of the Whole from 10 o'clock a.m. to 10:17 a.m., Land Use and Planning from 10:25 a.m. to 10:55 a.m., and we'll end the day with Public Safety and Health from 11 o'clock a.m. to 12:15 p.m.
Any changes to those committee meetings? All right, we'll move on to public comment. Is there any public comment from citizens present for items that are not on our agenda this evening?
Hi, good evening. My name's Andrea Davis, and I'm the Executive Director of Homeward. I happened to be in the audience for a consent agenda item, and so I thought I would express my appreciation to the leadership of the city, the staff, the council for your dedication to creating a city housing policy. I mean, I'm sure you read, as I did, an article in the newspaper just yet on Sunday, and there is continual news coverage of the challenge of our housing market for people in all spectrums of incomes. And I just very much appreciate the dedication that this city has towards coming up with a comprehensive housing policy. It's not going to be easy. I am happy to be participating on the steering committee of a group of citizens, and while we're months out, of course, from providing you with anything to sink your teeth into before we can bring that before the committees and then for the council to consider, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the leadership that I know that you will show when it comes time to make decisions around that. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Davis. Additional public comment on non-agenda items.
Candy Matthew Jenkins, 1211 Cooper Street. Still reading from the Soviet art of brainwashing, psychopolitics, the art of mental healing, that was read into the minutes of the un-American the Committee on Un-American Things in 1936, from 1936 to 1939, sorry. The officials of government, students, readers, partakers, and providers of entertainment must all be indoctrinated by whatever means into the complete belief that the restless, the ambitious, and the natural leaders are suffering from environmental maladjustments, which can be healed only by recourse to psychological operatives in the guise of mental healers. By thus degrading the general belief in the status of man, it is relatively simple, with the cooperation from economic salients being driven into the country to drive citizens apart from one another, to bring into question the wisdom of their own government, and to cause them to beg actively for a takeover. And as a side, I wanted to mention some remarks that I'm not a Republican and I am not a Democrat. I'm a Christian constitutionalist. And I find that the remarks from Nancy Keenan were all but uplifting for the general public. And I found that her synopsis of elephants and donkeys was appalling. And I'm sorry for the Democrats that you have leadership like that goes along with printing of okay with the party of President Satan. I find it that in the same category as what's going on in our community, in our state, in our nation, that people keep saying they want free speech, but they abuse their free speech to insult other people all the time. And I'm not doing that. And people I know don't do that, because we are Christians and we don't think that way and we don't talk that way. But obviously these people like to do that and make it go forward in a not so nice way and insulting. So I guess
we're at about 3.5 minutes with Patrick
they
Jenkins.
want.
Yep, thank you. Additional public comment? Mr. Moore?
My name is Bob Moore. Excuse me. Last council meeting, I had a couple of comments to make about the road going so close for the purpose of assisting the shopping center. Councilman Karras explained that she used that road as to get from Brooks to Reserve and forth, back and forth, every day, 10 times a week. So just for the heck of it, the next day I went out and watched the cars as they were coming from the Reserve side. I couldn't see the other side too well. Sat there about 15 minutes. 3 cars came by, came across the tracks, and where do you think they went? Do you think they followed the route to get over to have some connectivity on Brooks? No. They immediately turned into the shopping center. 3 of them. I didn't have a lot of time, so I left after 3. Because that's the purpose of the route anyway, to get more traffic directed into the shopping center and the benefit of the owners of the shopping center. So I guess your plan is working. Spending millions and millions and millions of dollars. I don't know how many roundabouts. I think it's about 4 or 5 roundabouts. So that slows me down when I'm trying to get over to the other street for my connectivity. And then the other section from the railroad tracks to Reserve was, I've forgotten now, a couple of $1 million. Of course, you're going to have to borrow that money and pay it back over, I think it's going to be 25 years. So out of my, and I'm not saying it's a statistical test, but out of my test, 3 people went directly to the shopping center, and I guess they probably saved, I don't know, a quarter of a mile by going through there. So y'all have done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Additional public comment on non-agenda items?
Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Marcy Hammond. I'm houseless. Persecuted by the city newspaper, painted as a person that does not follow the rules. Far from that, we have taught our children to obey the laws, seat belts, riding with helmets, lights. Now the present times. The Missoulian prince thinks the city wants the citizens to think are true. The article that posted 2 Sundays ago is total fabrication, slander, and total BS. We have had a meeting with one of your idiots. That's the finest, this Missoula City idiots. Not nice, but Sergeant Patrick Erbacher. Sergeant Erbacher informed John and myself that he was there the last city meeting. I can't remember when I was present. It was about your Christmas, right before Christmas, last city. He was in the audience in uniform and to provide protection for the mayor. He informed us last night. Jesse Ramos, this might be something for you to check into, because where's all this money coming from to prosecute 2 Missoula citizens and also 2 that were beat to the ground by the city in 2 different courts? Back to last night. Sergeant Erbacher felt compelled to show up at our mobile residence. Officer Hollis was able to keep the conversation level. About 3 to 5 minutes into the conversation, it kept escalating because of something that Sergeant Erbacher felt he needed to inform us. I stepped outside with my camera phone. I was telling John to let them do their job and give us the tickets. And then I said to the officer Erbacher, when did the noise complaint go to 10 o'clock? My understanding was always that it was 11 o'clock at night. We had a little misunderstanding there. Because of this, what Officer Erbacher told John, if he was the officer that had to come back a second time in the 2 days, March 10th and March 11th, John was getting a disorderly conduct. Because I stood my ground against Officer Erbacher, he gave me a ticket also. Sergeant Erbacher started telling us rules and laws. I asked when he went to law school. Sergeant Erbacher took a step forward and asked when I went to college. A city officer to enforce rights, regulations, and help the people of Missoula. So I stand up to an officer with a gun, and also a bully who tries to belittle me. There's a video. And I pled not guilty, and I'm asking for the video. To anyone that wants to know, it's 2018 10-4-74. Bucket list tomorrow is my birthday. 48.999. Never been booked or fingerprinted ever. Thank you, Missoula.
Ms. Hammond, we're at about 3.5 minutes. We're going to have to wrap up in the next 30 seconds.
Okay. I explained to the sergeant that I pay taxes. He said that he paid my property. He is paid by property taxes. So this is injustice. No police protection for the houseless. I have friends checking things out. Sergeant Erbacher does not pay property taxes himself. I tried to take deep breaths between talking to Sergeant Erbacher. Officer Hollis, who wrote the tickets, was at her car. We talked half yelling at Sergeant Erbacher. He needs to talk to people nicer and not like a drill sergeant. He was there so that the officers, he said that he was there so the officers were not harmed. We spoke civil with Officer Hollis, had no angry tone. John asked her to read the newspaper article. Anyone here, please read the article, February 25th. The only
Ms.
one we
Hammond,
have.
we're past 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. Have a
you.
wonderful night.
Thank you.
I had some more.
Additional public comment on non-agenda items?
My name is John Ulrich. Lived in this town since I was a month old in 1964. The treatment I'm getting is abominable. Being painted as someone who's violent. You all stood in the park and listened to Ethan Smith tell you how scary I was. That's very offensive. You know, every one of you has a house. Every one of you has a place to live. I had 4 houses, and I was making rental income before Susan Firth and her interference with my income making. She wrote a letter that Ethan Smith signed. And then Ethan Smith perjured himself at a hearing the other day, saying he didn't sign it, she wrote it. He also perjured himself, saying that we were not entitled to the notice of who complained about me every time of the 66 times he claims they were out to be. We're not entitled to see that because they're protecting them from my retaliations that he documented. There's no retaliations. This is all fabrications, libel, slander, bad jacketing, negative framing. And if you know what's going on, you should be outed. You should be gone. And if you don't know what's going on,
Mr.
you should
Ulrich.
be gone. I'm leaving.
Mr. General comments, no personal attacks.
Good night. It's not a personal attack. My life is being personally attacked. Thank you.
Additional public comment on non-agenda items. All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda were approved in city council committees by unanimous vote. We save time at council meetings by voting on these items as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda. We'll invite community comments on these items before we vote. Ms. Hands.
We have 6 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item number 1 is to approve claims in the amount of $924,389.95 for checks dated March 13, 2018. Item number 2 is a first reading and preliminary adoption. It's to set a public hearing on March 26, 2018 and preliminarily adopt an ordinance to rezone fractions of lots 7 through 10 and the south half of lots 11 and 12 of block 16 in the South Missoula addition, which is 13,564 square feet, in section 28, township 13 north, range 19 west, from R5.4 residential single dwelling to RT 2.7 residential 2-unit townhouse, based on the findings of fact in the staff report, and refer the item to the Land Use and Planning Committee. Item number 3 is to approve the 44 Ranch Subdivision Phasing Plan Amendment, subject to amended conditions and 3 new conditions of approval, as shown in Exhibit 1, based on the findings of fact in the staff report. Item number 4 is to award the bid for fiscal year 2018 traffic marking paint to Ennis Flint Incorporated, including 2,000 gallons of yellow traffic marking paint at $10.85 a gallon for a total of $21,700, and 1,500 gallons of white traffic marking paint at $10.85 a gallon for a total of $16,275, for a total contract award of $37,975, and authorize the return of bid bonds. Number 5 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a sole source purchase agreement for water meters for the Missoula Water Division from Corin, Maine, for a total cost of $76,126. And the last item is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a grant agreement with Homeward Incorporated and award up to $75,000 in City Brownsfield funds to remediate soil contamination at 1717 Montana Street in the city of Missoula.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on any of the consent agenda items? Are there any questions from council members or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
On the consent agenda, Anderson?
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Armstrong?
Yes.
Armstrong votes yes. Becerra?
Yes.
Becerra votes yes. Cares?
Yes.
Cares votes yes. DeBari?
Yes.
DeBari votes yes. Harp?
Yes.
Harp votes yes. Hess?
Yes.
Hess votes yes. Jones?
Yes.
Jones votes yes. Ramos?
Yes.
Ramos votes yes. Von Lossberg?
Yes.
Von Lossberg votes yes. And West?
Yes.
West votes yes. We have 11 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next section, comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, and the community forum. I don't believe we have any scheduled for this evening. We'll then next go to public hearings. State law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues. Following a staff report on each item, the city council and the mayor invite community comment. City council normally votes on the same night as the public hearing unless one council member requests that it be returned to the city council committee for further consideration. We have 2 public hearings tonight, and the first is a continuation of one that we opened last week. This is petition to vacate the 20-foot alley right-of-way, Missoula Public Library, Block 6, McCork Edition, and I will reopen that public hearing. Is there any public comment? Going once? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions from committee members? Okay, this lives in Public Works. Oh, question. Ms. Karas.
My apology. Can someone, I guess Mr. Larson, tell me what we're voting on essentially? Curbside or boulevard sidewalks?
I'll actually
take it away.
intersect. It will depend on the motion that gets put on the floor. Drew, do you want to clarify anything on that?
Certainly. Give me 1 second. So the staff, Drew Larson Development Services, so the staff report regarding the right-of-way vacation recommended 4 conditions of approval, leaving the curbside versus boulevard sidewalk decision up to City Council, essentially. And so there's only 4 recommended conditions in the staff report. However, there's been multiple conversations over the last few weeks, and we were asked to provide 2 additional conditions for Council's considerations, and that is 1, provide a 10-foot wide boulevard area with a minimum of 7-foot wide cleared sidewalks on Front Street, and then prioritize boulevard landscapes on Adams and Jefferson. So if Council chooses to go forward with the staff recommendation with just the 4 conditions, that recommendation is in the original referral, but if you choose to go with these, there would be a revised motion.
Additional questions? Okay, Mr. Hess, this lives in Public Works.
Thank you, President von Lossberg. So I will make the recommended motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Missoula, Montana, to close and vacate the 20-foot wide alley located in Block 6 of the McQuark Edition, subject to the 4 conditions of approval in the staff report and the 2 additional conditions shown on the screen. I can read those into the record if you'd like, and I'd like to speak to the motion.
Yeah, why don't you read them in, and you may speak to it.
Okay. Condition 5, the applicant's site plan shall provide a minimum 10-foot wide boulevard landscape area and boulevard sidewalk with a minimum of 7 feet of clearance along East Front Street prior to building permit submittal, subject to review and approval of Missoula Parks and Recreation and Development Services. And number 6, the applicant's site plan shall prioritize boulevard landscape areas to the maximum extent possible and provide sidewalks with a minimum of 7 feet clearance south of the drop-off on Jefferson Street and along Adams Street prior to building permit submittal, subject to the review and approval of Missoula Parks and Recreation and Development Services. And if I may speak to it?
You may.
First of all, this is a right-of-way vacation, which is a permanent decision. A right-of-way is deeded to the city through a deliberative process of subdivision review, and it's to serve the public good. Any decision to vacate public right-of-way is a decision with some gravity. It's a loss of public space that has to be offset by some degree of public benefit. We've discussed several right-of-way vacations over the last number of years that I've been on City Council with varying levels of conditions, but they all come with unique conditions that are subject to the specific demands of the project. So by statute, the library is not required to follow municipal zoning, and that's not a concern for me. The library is going to build a best-in-class facility. I trust that. I have strong faith in the library's management, and I am always impressed with the programmatic offerings of the Missoula Public Library. I do think it's the role of this body to situate this project in the broader context of our downtown area. And the library is in a very interesting transition zone between, on one corner, it is squarely in downtown. It's got 1 foot in the downtown area, and it's got another foot in this historic neighborhood, which is a transitional area with longtime residences and transition to river area and parkways. So I think it's appropriate for the council to consider the broader context of this area in crafting these conditions. That said, like I said, I have strong faith in the library team and the library project, and I have no desire, nor do I think it's appropriate for us to place any additional conditions inside the right-of-way boundaries. This is about the public right-of-way. We have a long culture of long-range planning in this community, and we should continually refer to and uphold our long-range planning efforts. In this case, that includes our long-range transportation plan, our growth policy, our downtown master plan, and the front and main two-way conversion study, as well as other relevant plans. We should also continually refer to statute or to Missoula Municipal Code, which is our guiding light in this case. So within this context, I think it's important to continue the pattern of boulevard sidewalks that has been established along Front Street. And if you look at Missoula Municipal Code, Chapter 12.12.060, sidewalks, this requires a boulevard sidewalk. So to me, it's pretty clear that this is the pattern we need to continue, unless there is a compelling reason There are 5 exceptions listed in Title 12 for this criteria, and I don't believe that the criteria for the exemption have been met. So again, I'm very excited about this project. I'm not thrilled with the position that we're in to adjudicate the merits of another public entity's projects, and I stand in full support of the library and their work, and I think that together we'll achieve a very nice project.
Thanks. Mr. Hess's motion is in order, and just for clarity, includes the 4 staff recommendations as well as 5 and 6 up here. We've got Ms. Jones.
I just want to say thank you to Jordan for your articulate comments, and I appreciate drawing all of the analysis out based on the law that's in front of us and the long-range planning as well as what's currently in our code. I've thought a lot about this also, and I think you're right. I think City Council's role is to sometimes take a broader view, and this is a historic district residential neighborhood, and I believe it's Adams is on the east, and is it Jefferson is on the east, and Front on the south are bordered by residential areas, which are going to remain residential areas. There are investments being made in some of these residential buildings. The Helen Street Apartments just had a huge investment made in them. There's affordable housing going in on a lot across the street from Front. So it is a transition area, and we have boulevard sidewalks whenever feasible in our residential neighborhoods because, frankly, they, for many reasons that are codified in our law, but just as a basic statement, it's a much better walking experience, and it's far more inviting than walking next to parked cars or whizzing traffic going by. So we have boulevards whenever we can have them included, and that's a value. It's aesthetically beautiful to have a tree canopy with a boulevard as well as a much better walking experience. We want to encourage walking as well as give a nod to the residential section that is surrounding this section of the library, because people will continue to live there for many, many decades, and there should be a smooth transition into this area. So thanks for making the motion, Jordan. I'm in favor of it, and I am greatly looking forward to seeing our beautiful new library go in, and I think it's going to be fabulous.
Dr. Damari.
Thanks. I also want to reiterate what Mr. Hess had said regarding the right-of-way. It is something that the city holds in trust for all the residents of the community. It's done through a deliberative process, and so when we're asked to vacate right-of-way, one of the tests that I think council needs to assess is to the extent to which the community is going to benefit from the outcome of the applicant's proposal. And I think we're definitely moving in that direction with the motion that Mr. Hess made. I think it also reflects the fact that we are upholding Title 12, which, as Mr. Hess said, I mean, the applicant doesn't necessarily have to adhere to zoning because they're a governmental agency, but they do have to adhere to Title 12. And I think it's a good pattern to continue to reflect our ordinances with regard to sidewalks. And I think in this particular case, we're going to get a better product as a result of the condition that we used to have up on the screen behind us. And I will say that I've had an evolution of thought regarding this particular proposal in site plan because recently we decided to zone the library parcel in the central business district. I had strongly felt like it should reflect the central business district, which includes wide sidewalks that go to the curb, provides a lot of interaction space for people to be on the sidewalks, not just folks walking by, but people stopping, and additional kinds of street furniture, if you will, like bike parking and signage and other sorts of things. And I thought that that would be a good environment for around the library. But on a field trip that I and several others took, I think it really took walking around the library and trying to get a sense for the feel of the different exposures, as it were, as Ms. Jones had mentioned. There's different characters on each side of that new library block, and I think it's wise of us to be sensitive to the different characters in the neighborhood and to try to provide, while trying to provide for those different characters, we also try to provide the kind of infrastructure that would be best suited for them. So I think the design of the Main Street side really reflects that more kind of urban environment, central business district, but as we move around from north to south, I think it better reflects the ambiance, if you will, of the existing neighborhood. So as I said, I've had an evolution of thought on this, and I think what we have before us is a good compromise, and I want to thank all of the staff who've spent a lot of time on this, folks like Drew in Development Services and Parks and as well, and the Parking Commission, Rod Austin. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and it probably shouldn't have, but I'm glad we're at a place where I think we're comfortable in moving forward. So I'm looking forward to supporting the motion.
Ms. Karas.
Thanks. I'll support the motion. I'm pleased that the additional conditions are part of the motion. I still have some concerns about the accessibility, access on Front Street, and questions, mostly curiosity based around accessible spots within the parking lot, but those are, pretty administrative thoughts, and I feel confident that people heard the testimony we heard during public comment about these things, and that those concerns will be heard, felt out, and heeded. And so, that kind of, we are a policy-making guideline, and I support this policy and will be voting yes. Thanks.
Ms. West.
So one of the things that's pretty amazing about the library and its patrons is that there's pretty, a 50-50 split between modes of how people get there. So only about half of people arrive there by car, and the other half arrive there either by bike or walking or some form of public transportation. And just so I won't repeat what other folks have said, I'll move to the purely anecdotal. And so I met pretty much everybody I know at the library when I moved here with a 14-month-old and went to Tiny Tales 3 times a week, and then later on went to the library with 2 children 3 times a week. And I really appreciate the addition of the boulevard sidewalks, because when you're wrestling 2 children, one of which that can walk and the other one that can't, it's always nice to have a buffer between you and vehicles. And I think that there's, I also failed to say I walked every time. And so as a pedestrian, I think it's nice to have a buffer and a safer walking experience. And I appreciate also the way this will fit into the neighborhood that is residential and the parks and everything around it. So I support it as is.
Ms. Armstrong.
Some of my thoughts have already been articulated, but we will not have another, or we may have some input, but we don't have any opportunities to really have input into the way the library is being designed or how it's going to function, and that's fine. I would hope that the board understands that we fully support this as an equalizing force. There are very few places where there are great equalizers, or playgrounds and trails and public spaces in the library, and it will need to serve many functions. There has to be a realization that homeless people will be there, and that people that don't have a ton of resources will be using the library heavily, and anything that you can do going forward to make sure that it serves everybody as well as possible is my desire, and I'm sure other people on council. Like I said, we're not going to have a chance to have much input into it, but things like accessibility and transportation and buffer zones and trees and as Mr. DeBari said, street furniture, all those things are going to be very, very important. As we're a small town, we don't have a lot of equalizers, and every single one becomes more and more important every time we go down that road. So those are my comments.
Ms. Becerra.
I too support the motion and agree with everything that my colleagues have stated. And I would like to add that landscape boulevards are part of our green infrastructure, and I think that as we continue to grow, which is in part why we have this project in front of us to accommodate the growing needs of our community, it's important to think about the needs that we're going to have in terms of green infrastructure. So I think it's important to also consider that not just as part of a sidewalk, but as part of the green infrastructure that we have in our city.
Ms. Hart.
Well, I thank all of my fellow councilors for their comments. And I think going back to what you said, John, it has been an evolution of thinking. And so to those of you on the library board, I want to say thank you so very much for coming forward and presenting this project to our community. I know you overcame a lot of odds to make this happen. And so I want to congratulate you on that whole process. And I'm going to be supporting this motion. I just want all of you to celebrate that you get to break ground now. And we get to move forward in this culture house that you have envisioned. And I'm very much looking forward to the next step. Thank you.
Mr. Ramos.
Hey, I just wanted to talk to Mr. Nugent. I guess that I heard a lot about the keeping of the character of the neighborhood, and I think this is in violation of the Lowe decision. I'm totally kidding, by the way. I didn't vote for this bond, but I am really excited about this project. I think the staff has done a phenomenal job, and I just want to thank them for their work, and I want to thank Mr. Hess for articulating everything so well, and I'll be supporting this motion.
Well done, Mr. Councilman. Is there any further council comment? I can't add anything on substantive to the comments of my colleagues. I simply want to thank Neil Miner from Parks for doing a great job of laying out the code that governs here, I believe, and doing a good job at laying out, referencing the various documents where we have expressed in policy our community values. It made it easier for myself. With that, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
Vote on the motion with the 6 conditions of approval. Armstrong? Yes. Armstrong votes yes. Becerra? Yes. Becerra votes yes. Cares? Yes. Cares votes yes. Dabari? Yes. Dabari votes yes. Harp? Yes. Harp votes yes. Hess? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Ramos? Ramos votes yes. Von Lossberg?
Yes.
Von Lossberg votes yes. West? Yes. West votes yes. Anderson? Yes. Anderson votes yes. That's 11 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. Our second public hearing is a resolution to support changes to the Missoula City County Air Pollution Control Program rules.
Hello, my name is Sarah Cofield. I'm an air quality specialist with the Missoula City County Health Department. I am here to present a rule change that is more adding a verbiage than it is anything of particular substance. Rule 4.112 of the Air Pollution Control Program is the rule that allows us during a wildfire smoke episode to put out health advisories instead of putting into motion regulatory actions that shut down winter air pollution sources such as wood stoves and industry. Our emergency episode avoidance plan is held within Chapter 4 is typically supposed to be triggered during winter air pollution episodes. And so everything that's in Chapter 4 is about reducing human-caused pollution as best we can in order to protect public health. During a wildfire smoke episode, it's not going to do any good to really try to shut down sources that are not why we have pollution. We don't want to be telling folks to stop using their wood stoves in August because they probably aren't using their wood stoves in August, and that is not our source of pollution, and we won't be able to do anything to improve anybody's health by putting those sorts of rules into effect. So our current rule 4.112 was adopted back in 2010, and it has been what we've used for the past several years for issuing health advisories instead of calling air pollution alerts and warnings. It was brought to our attention by the EPA while they were looking at our PM10 redesignation request that it's a little bit vague. And they asked if we could take a look at this rule and put in there what we actually do, codify our current actions during a wildfire smoke event. and also define what we mean by wildfire smoke episode. So our changes to Rule 4.112, there's a lot more words. The intent is still the same, the actions are still the same. What it does is it codifies our actions, which are issuing health advisories, using science and scientific and meteorological data to determine that, yes, this is a wildfire smoke event, to understand what's going on with the smoke and issue our best advice based upon that. And really clarifies that although we may be waiving the air pollution alerts and warnings, the entire rest of our program does remain in effect. The only thing that isn't happening is we aren't calling the air pollution alerts and warnings that set into motion winter air pollution controls. So it's more of a verbiage update than anything else. It doesn't change the substance of the rule, and it doesn't affect what we do. I had a question at the commissioners' hearing if how this would have affected our last wildfire season, and it wouldn't have affected anything. This is what we do. We issue health advisories, we let the public know what's going on, and we keep an eye on the smoke. So this has gone through several steps already. It went before the Air Quality Advisory Council in July, then it went through the Air Pollution Control Board hearing on September 21st, and we went through the County Commissioners' public hearing last Thursday. So this is our final local step for adoption of an air rule. After this, it will go to the Montana Board of Environmental Review for final approval, and after that, it will be an official update to our air pollution control program. So I believe you guys should have the motion. I have the first part of it there, and then I can also keep going to the second one. But the main point is we need to put down what we're doing. So that's what we've done.
Thank you, Ms. Cofield. With that, I will open the public hearing. Is there any public comment on the resolution to support changes to the Missoula City County Air Pollution Control Program rules? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions from council members? Dr. Dabari.
Ms. Schofield, I was just curious, how long is the process after the council takes action?
The next Board of Environmental Review meeting is, I believe, April 6th. So our plan is to be on that agenda and present to them at that meeting, and then we'll be done.
All right, this is from Public Safety and Health. Ms. Karas.
I move that we adopt a resolution to support revisions to Rule 4.112 of the Missoula City County Air Pollution Control Program regarding wildfire smoke episodes. And may I speak to the motion?
Please do.
As Ms. Cofield spoke to, this is pretty basic policy change and update, but a good opportunity to thank the health department for their work, and I just really appreciate the fact that we do a process that's the right words are not coming to me. Anyways, our process is a good one, and it's good to codify the fact that we're doing the good work that we're doing. I'm going to eloquently stop talking.
Additional comments, Ms. Armstrong.
Once again, our air quality division has exceeded expectations, and they've put into practice what was not in code, and this is just a housekeeping item. We haven't been an attainment area for a couple of years now, and it's remarkable that the EPA even picked up on this. So kudos to Sarah.
Any further comments? All right, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
Vote on the motion. Becerra? Yes. Becerra votes yes. Karas? Yes. Karas votes yes. Dabari? Yes. Dabari votes yes. Harp? Yes. Harp votes yes. Hess? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Ramos? Ramos votes yes. Von Lossberg?
Yes.
Von Lossberg votes yes. West? Yes. West votes yes. Anderson? Yes. Anderson votes yes. And Armstrong? Armstrong votes yes. That's 11 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. Next is communications from the mayor, in this case the presiding officer. I will simply say hello to my mom, who is either watching or if she's not, I'm sure I will have a question about various web browsers on email when I get home. We'll begin general comments of City Council with Ms. Karas. Ms. Anderson. I love it when I look right at you and I blank. Ms. Anderson, pass. Ms. Armstrong.
So next week is March for Meals, Missoula Aging Services, and I encourage everybody to support aging services either monetarily or with your time. And if you can't do that, I don't know, go over to your elderly neighbors or folks that might need some help and form your own network. It's important in this community. So that's it.
Mr. Ramos.
A few weeks ago, I talked about an organization called the Veterans Meat Locker, and they provide wild venison, buffalo, deer, elk to veterans in need. And we're making another trip over there next weekend, actually, and was just wondering if somebody in the press would be kind enough to cover that. So anybody that's a veteran or even a family member of a veteran, such as a widow, will qualify for free meat and free venison. So please get a hold of me or anyone on the city council, and we'll be able to get you in touch with that.
Dr. DeMari. Ms. Harp. Ms. Jones.
A couple of different items to talk about. First of all, I wanted to talk about the city cemetery briefly. Last fall during campaign season, Mr. Ramos, when he was campaigning during public comment, had a creative idea, which I appreciate, regarding the city cemetery, that during the winter time, the employees, since they didn't have a lot to do, could maybe plow streets. So I appreciate the creative approach, but Mr. Ramos and I had a meeting with city cemetery staff. I was concerned about statements like that floating out there, that we pay city employees, but they don't work that hard sometimes. And when we sit down with the city cemetery staff, what becomes apparent is during the summertime, the entire 60-acre plus cemetery is hand-watered, mown, full of trees and bushes. Everything has to be trimmed and pruned, as well as, of course, burials and cremation niches that are going on. So there's a ton of work, but in the wintertime, really all of the work that doesn't get done in the summertime, it then gets kicked to the winter in terms of maintaining all of the facilities, not to mention plowing everything, but repairing everything and working on all of the machinery. So I just wanted to clarify that our city cemetery employees work hard all summer and all winter long. And on a couple of other topics, first of all, I wanted to say congratulations to the Sentinel basketball girls team, the Spartans, who took second place at state in Billings this last weekend, which was a great accomplishment. And then finally, I wanted to say congratulations to the Grizz basketball team, who won the Big Sky Championship, and they're going to the big dance. So this Thursday, 5 o'clock, they will be playing the University of Michigan, and our big man in the middle, I can't say his name, Fabian Krajolovic, will be going up against one of the best big men in basketball in the United States in college level basketball. So it should be a good game, and I know we're going to get to the Sweet 16 this year. It's going to happen.
You heard it here. Ms. Becerra. Mr. Hess. Ms. West. Next item is committee reports. I do not believe we have any. We do not. I don't see any items under new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none. Under miscellaneous communications, petitions, reports, and announcements, I know that the administrative report and chart of accounts is attached. And with that, thank you all for your service. Thanks for being a great audience this evening. We are adjourned.